The explosion ripped through the Afghan valley at 13:42 hours, turning the patrol route into a chaos of dust, smoke, and screaming metal. Sergeant James Chen hit the ground hard, ears ringing, vision blurred by the blast wave that had just tried to tear him apart. But he wasn't checking himself for wounds. Titan. His voice cracked through the smoke. Titan. Sound off. 20 meters ahead, movement in the dust cloud. A dark shape struggling to stand. 4 legs, one of them dragging. Military working dog Titan. K9 to 471 had found the IED 30 seconds too late. His alert had come to sit, the stare, the signal, but the pressure plate had already been triggered by falling debris from the cliff. Above, the blast meant for the patrol had caught Titan instead. Chen scrambled forward on his hands and knees, debris cutting through his gloves. The rest of his squad was shouting behind him, establishing a perimeter, calling for medevac. But all of it was just noise. All that mattered was the dog. Titan was standing barely. His right rear leg hung at a wrong angle, blood matting the fur along his side. Shrapnel wounds, multiple impacts. But his eyes were locked on Chen, alert and focused despite the pain that must have been screaming through every nerve. I got you, buddy. I got you. Chen's hands moved across Titan's body with practiced efficiency, checking for arterial bleeding, for chest wounds, for anything immediately life-threatening. The training kicked in even as his heart tried to hammer through his ribs, heavy bleeding from the leg, possible internal injuries. Breathing rapid but steady, pupils responsive, survivable if they move fast. Echo 3, this is Echo 1 actual. Chen barked into his radio. K9 casualty, need immediate vehicle extract. Grid follows, static crackled back. Then Lieutenant Morrison's voice, tight with stress. Negative, Echo 1. All vehicles are committed to the northern sector. Heavy contact. We can't pull assets for. He's bleeding out. Chen cut him off, something he'd never done before in 4 years of service. I need a vehicle now. Chen, Morrison's voice softened, and that was somehow worse than if he'd yell. I'm sorry. You're 3 clicks from the base. The vehicles won't make it to you faster than you can walk. You need to move on foot now. 3 kilometers. Rough, mountainous terrain. With a 70-pound dog who couldn't walk, Chen looked down at Titan. The dog was watching him, reading him the way he always did, waiting for the command, waiting to be told what to do, where to go, how to survive. They trained together for this. Hundreds of scenarios. Urban combat, vehicle patrol, building clearance, explosive detection. But never this. Never carry your wounded partner 3 clicks through hostile territory with no backup and no guarantee either of you will make it. Chen's squad sergeant, Miller, appeared beside him, breathing hard, weapon up and scanning the ridge line. Sir, we need to move. That blast will draw attention. We're exposed here. Help me get him up. Chen, help me get him up. Sergeant. Miller looked at the dog, then at Chen, then back at the dog. Something shifted in his expression, understanding. Maybe respect, maybe just resignation that arguing would waste time they didn't have. All right, how do we do this? Chen pulled off his assault pack and webbing, stripping down to just his rifle, sidearm, and basic kit. Every ounce mattered now. He'd trained carrying heavy loads, but Titan wasn't a rucksack. Titan was a living, bleeding partner who was going to fight against being carried because that's what wounded animals did. Titan. Chen's voice dropped into the command tone that cut through everything else. Easy stay. The dog's muscles relaxed fractionally. Trusting, Chen bent down, worked his arms under Titan's body, and lifted. 70 pounds of muscle, fur, and gear. The dog whimpered the first sound of pain he'd made but didn't struggle. I've got you, Chen whispered again. I've got you, and I'm not leaving you here. You hear me? Not happening. The weight settled across his shoulders. Not impossible, not yet. But 3 kilometers was a long way. Miller positioned himself on point. Let's move. Stay sharp. They started walking. The first 100 meters, Chen's legs felt strong. His breathing was controlled. He could do this. They'd make it. By 200 meters, his shoulders were burning. Titan's weight pressed down like an accusation. Each step on the uneven ground threatened to roll his ankle, send them both tumbling. By 500 meters, sweat was pouring into his eyes. His lower back screamed. Titan's blood was soaking into his uniform, warm and sticky, a constant reminder of how much time they might not have. Chen, you need to put him down and rest. Miller said, turning back to check on them. Keep moving, sir. I said keep moving, Sergeant, because if he put Titan down, he didn't know if he'd have the strength to pick him back up. And if he couldn't pick him back up, then what? Leave him, call for someone else to carry him, wait for vehicles that might not come. No. He carried this dog through 3 years of missions, through firefights and IED sweeps and night raids. Titan had saved his life twice, once in Kandahar when he'd alerted to a suicide vest before the bomber got close, once in Helmand when he'd taken down an insurgent who'd gotten behind their formation. 3 kilometers was nothing. 3 kilometers was the least he could do. Stay with me, buddy, he whispered, his voice ragged now, breath coming in gasps. Stay with me. We're getting home. Both of us. Titan's head lifted slightly, just enough to press against Chen's neck, still trusting, still believing his handler would get him home. And in that moment, Chen knew he would, even if it broke him, even if it took everything he had, because that's what brothers did. They carried each other home. Subscribe so you never miss these stories of courage. Tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today? 3 years earlier, Staff Sergeant James Chen had met Titan for the first time in a kennel at Lackland Air Force Base in Texas. The dog had been 2 years old then, fresh out of advanced training, eyes bright with intelligence and energy that never seemed to run out. This is your new partner, the K9 handler instructor had said, opening the kennel door. Military working dog Titan, Belgian Malinois German Shepherd mix, certified in explosives detection and patrol work, smart as hell, but stubborn. You'll have to earn his respect. Chen had knelt down, letting the dog approach on his own terms. Titan had circled him twice, sniffing, assessing, deciding. Then he'd sat down directly in front of Chen, staring into his eyes with an intensity that was almost human. That's when Chen knew. This wasn't just going to be a working relationship. This was going to be a partnership, a brotherhood. The training had been grueling. 12 weeks of constant work, learning each other's rhythms, building communication through commands and gestures, and 1,000 tiny signals that passed between handler and dog. Chen learned to read Titan's body language, the tilt of an ear that meant he'd caught a scent, the shift of weight that meant he was about to alert, the slight hesitation that meant he was unsure and needed confirmation. And Titan learned Chen, learned his voice, his stride, his moves, learned that Chen would never put him in danger unnecessarily, never abandon him, never break trust. By the time they deployed to Afghanistan, they moved as one unit. Chen's squad joked that they couldn't tell where the man ended and the dog began. Their first mission together had been a village clearing operation in Helmand province. Titan had alerted to an IED buried in a market in Trance, 10 kilograms of homemade explosives. That would have killed half the squad. The bomb techs had disarmed it while the soldiers watched. Titan sat calmly beside Chen, tail wagging slightly, waiting for his reward toy. After that, Titan wasn't just a K9. He was their good luck charm, their guardian angel with 4 legs and a bark that could stop a man's heart. When they slept in forward operating bases, Titan slept beside Chen's cot. When they ate, Titan ate from Chen's hand. When they went on missions, Titan walked to Chen's left side, always within arm's reach. The other soldiers started bringing treats from care packages, started sneaking him extra food, started petting him before missions for luck. But Titan's loyalty never wavered. His eyes were always on Chen. His focus was always on Chen. He was a military working dog by training, but he was Chen's dog by choice. Chen's legs had gone numb somewhere around kilometer 2. He didn't feel pain anymore. He didn't feel much of anything except the weight across his shoulders and the absolute certainty that he would not stop. Miller was still on point, but he'd slowed his pace, throwing constant glances back to make sure Chen was still moving. The rest of the patrol had formed a protective box around them, weapons out, eyes scanning the ridgelines where enemy fighters liked to hide. Nobody spoke. They just walked. Titan's breathing had changed, shallower, weaker. Chen could feel it against his neck where the dog's muzzle rested. Still alive, still holding on. But for how much longer? Half a click, Miller called back. Base is just over the next rise. Chen didn't have breath to answer. He just kept putting one foot in front of the other. His vision had narrowed to a tunnel. Each step was a negotiation with his body. Just one more. Just make it one more step. Then you can think about the next one. Titan whimpered softly. I know. Chen gasped. I know it hurts. Almost there. Almost home. The dog's tail moved slightly. A tiny wag. Still trusting. Something broke inside Chen then. Not physically. Somewhere deeper. The part of him that had learned to compartmentalize, to stay professional, to remember that military working dogs were assets, not pets, not family, not worth destroying your career over. That part shattered. This wasn't an asset. This was Titan. His partner. His brother. The living being who saved his life and trusted him to return the favor. The base walls appeared over the ridge. Tan concrete and wire fencing and the most beautiful sight Chen had ever seen. Medic. Miller was shouting before they even reached the gate. K9 casualty. Get the vet to the aid station now. Soldiers appeared, taking positions, clearing a path. Someone tried to take Titan from Chen's arms, but Chen shook his head violently. I've got him. Just open the door. They ran through the base, boots pounding dirt, voices shouting coordinates and medical terminology Chen barely heard. The world had contracted to the weight in his arms and the shallow breathing against his neck. The veterinary tent appeared. Hands reached out the vet, Captain Rodriguez, already gloved and ready. On the table now. Chen laid Titan down as gently as he could. The dog's eyes opened, found Chen's face, held his gaze. Stay, Chen commanded, his voice breaking on the word. Stay, Titan. That's an order. The dog's tail moved once, then the vet was working and Chen was being pulled back, and the world was spinning. Someone caught him before he hit the ground. Miller, strong hands holding him up. You did it. Miller said quietly, you got him home, Chen. Now let them do their job. Chen couldn't answer. He just stared at the table where Titan lay, still and small under the bright surgical lights, and prayed to whatever gods listened that 3 kilometers had been enough. That carrying his brother home would be enough to save him. The surgery took for hours. Chen sat outside the veterinary tent the entire time, still in his blood-stained uniform, rifle across his knees, staring at nothing. Soldiers came and went. His squad brought him water he didn't drink, food he didn't eat. Someone tried to get him to go to the showers, to clean up, to rest. He didn't move. Lieutenant Morrison appeared at some point, crouching beside him. Chen, the dog's in good hands. You need to take care of yourself. I'll move when I know he's okay, sir. Morrison studied him for a long moment. That was 3 clicks through exposed terrain. You know what you risked? Yes, sir. Was it worth it? Chen finally looked at him. He would have done the same for me, sir. He has done the same for me. Morrison nodded slowly. Something passed across his face, understanding, maybe, or memory. I had a dog when I was a kid, golden retriever. When he died, I cried for a week. He stood up. You're a good handler, Chen, the best I've seen. Take care of yourself. That's an order. Yes, sir. The sun was setting when Captain Rodriguez finally emerged from the tent. Her scrubs were stained, her face exhausted, but she was smiling. Chen was on his feet before she'd taken the steps. He's stable, Rodriguez said. The shrapnel wounds were clean, nothing vital hit. The leg's going to need time to heal. But he'll walk again. He's tough, Chen. Tougher than I've seen in a long time. Chen's knees almost gave out. Miller caught his elbow, steadying him. Can I see him? He's still sedated, but yes. Come on. The tent smelled of antiseptic and blood. Titan lay on a padded table in the corner, one leg wrapped in bandages for a line running into his foreleg. His chest rose and fell with deep, drugged sleep. Chen approached slowly, reaching out to rest his hand on the dog's head. The fur was still warm, still alive. Thank you, he whispered to Rodriguez. Thank you. You got him here in time, she replied. 3 more hours and it would have been a different story. You saved his life, Sergeant. Chen shook his head. He saved mine first. I just paid back the debt. He stayed there all night, hand on Titan's head, keeping watch the way Titan had kept watch over him 100 times before. And when the dog's eyes finally opened near dawn, finding Chen's face immediately, the tail began to wag. They were both going home. Titan never deployed again. The injuries had healed, but the vet corps made the call. K9 to 471 had given enough. It was time to retire. Chen's enlistment was up 6 months later. The choice was easy. Where Titan went, Chen went. The retirement ceremony was small. Just Chen's squad, a few officers, and a handler from the K9 Corps to officially transfer Titan from military service to Chen's permanent custody. They pinned a medal on Titan's vest. Service commendation, 3 years of faithful duty, 17 IEDs detected, countless lives saved. Titan sat perfectly still through it all, tail wagging whenever Chen's hand touched his head. "Take care of him," the K-9 Corps handler said, shaking Chen's hand. "He's earned the quiet life." "I will, sir." They flew home together, Chen in a seat, Titan in a crate beside him that Chen had paid extra to keep in the cabin. The dog whined once during takeoff, and Chen reached down to slip his fingers through the crate door, letting Titan lick them until the anxiety passed. Home was a small rental house on the edge of a quiet town in Virginia. Nothing special. 2 bedrooms, a yard with a fence, close to the VA hospital where Chen had started therapy for the nightmares that followed him back from Afghanistan. Titan's bed went in Chen's bedroom. Not because the dog needed to be close, because Chen did. The nightmares were bad at first. Chen would wake up choking on phantom dust, hearing explosions that weren't there, smelling blood that had soaked into the dessert years ago. But every time he woke up gasping, Titan was there, pressing his weight against Chen's leg, resting his head on Chen's lap. Solid reel, a tether to the present when the past tried to drag him back. "I'm okay," Chen would whisper, hands buried in the dog's fur. "I'm okay. We're home. We're both home." And slowly, month by month, it got better. Chen found work at a local security firm. Titan came with him to the office, lying under his desk, a calming presence that made the long days bearable. The boss didn't mind, said the dog was good for morale. They fell into a routine. Morning walks, work, evening walks, dinner together, Chen at the table, Titan on his bed nearby. TV shows Chen barely watched because his attention was always half on the dog, making sure he was comfortable, making sure he was happy, making sure the debt was paid. People asked sometimes if Chen ever thought about getting another dog, a younger one without scars and a limp and gray in his muzzle. Chen always said no. There was only one Titan, only one partner who'd walked through hell beside him and never asked for anything, except to stay close. That was enough. That was everything. The heart attack came, without warning, on a cold February morning. Chen was 42, healthy, the doctors had said at his last checkup. Nothing to worry about. But the years of blast exposure, the stress, the damage done to a body that had been pushed beyond its limits had added up. And on a Tuesday morning, James Chen's heart simply stopped. Titan was beside him. The neighbors heard the dog howling for 3 hours before anyone came. The funeral was military honors, folded flag, 3-volley salute. Taps played while the sun set over Arlington National Cemetery. Titan lay beside the casket the entire time, chin on his paws, eyes fixed on the flag-draped box like he was waiting for a command that would never come. When they lowered Chen into the ground, handlers tried to lead Titan away. The dog fought them the first time in his life he'd ever fought a command. They finally had to carry him, and even then he twisted back, trying to see the grave, trying to stay. They found him a new home. Good people. Veteran family. Big yard. Other dogs for company. Titan ran away the first night. They found him at the cemetery at dawn, lying on the fresh dirt of Chen's grave. They tried 3 more times. 3 more families. Titan ran from all of them. Always back to the cemetery. Always back to Chen. Finally, the K-9 Corps gave up. They contacted the cemetery groundskeeper, a veteran himself named Robert Hayes, explained the situation, asked if there was any way. Hayes said yes before they finished asking. He gave Titan a bed in the maintenance shed, food and water always available, the gate code so the dog could come and go. And every morning at 06:00 hours, the time Chen used to wake up for their morning walks, Titan made his way to Section 12, Row 3, Grave 7. He would lie there for hours, sometimes all day, head on his paws, eyes on the stone. People started noticing, started taking pictures, started posting on social media. This dog visits his handler's grave every single day. The story went viral. News crews came. Reporters asked questions. The internet fell in love with the loyal dog who refused to forget. Donations poured in, enough to cover Titan's care for the rest of his life, enough to place a bench near Chen's grave with a plaque that read, "In memory of the bond between handler and K-9, a love that death cannot break." Veterans came from across the country to visit, to salute Chen's grave, to pet Titan and whisper thank you, and every single one of them left with tears in their eyes. Because Titan wasn't just a dog mourning his handler. He was a reminder that some bonds transcend duty, that some loyalty runs deeper than training, that some love never dies, it just changes form. On Titan's 8th birthday, the K-9 Corps came back, brought a new medal, a civilian commendation for exemplifying the unbreakable bond between soldier and service animal. They pinned it to a new vest, a simple one, no tactical gear, just a badge that read K9 veteran, retired with honors. Titan sat perfectly still, just like he had at his first ceremony. But this time, when they finished, he walked straight back to the grave and lay down, because medals were nice, honors were nice, but Chen was here, and Titan had made a promise the day his handler carried him 3 kilometers through hostile territory, the promise to never leave, to always stay, to be loyal until the very end. He was keeping that promise, one morning at a time. True loyalty doesn't end with death. Sometimes the strongest bonds are the ones that refuse to break, even when everything else has fallen apart. The love between a soldier and his K9 isn't just training. It's brotherhood. It's sacrifice. It's the kind of devotion that changes everyone who witnesses it. If this story moved you, subscribe so you never miss these stories of courage and sacrifice. Tell us in the comments what's your most loyal companion, who's the one you never leave behind. Until next time, stay safe, stay strong, and never forget the heroes human and four-legged who serve beside us.